I'm just going to raise this. There we go. Is that your way?
No.
Good. So my task is to actually talk about the topic, which I could just tell you. Look, I wrote a book with my wife Zahava on the Fall Feast of Israel for Moody Press. It's been out about 35 years. You can just go read it. You'll find out a lot more. Maybe one day we'll make it into a movie. But there are a few things that I'd love to be able to share this evening. And so we're going to jump in, actually. So if you have a Bible, I know everything's going to be on a screen, but there's something about a Bible. So if you would turn to Leviticus chapter 23. I know that a lot of you know Leviticus, memorized it. Leviticus. The reason we're calling the event Trumpets to Tents is because we begin this season of the year, Rosh Hashanah, with the shofar, with the trumpet, and then we close it, as we are right now, with the tents, Sukkot, with the Feast of Tabernacles. And so that's where the name comes from. So I'm going to look at this, and if you don't mind, it's going to be more of a Bible kind of message, if that's okay. If that's all right. This is Moody Church. Bible. So we're going to look. We've already had some great information. I thank God for Robin and for Michael's testimony of. Yeah, it didn't make any difference at all, Ryan. Thank you. And I love hearing about what they're doing in the Lord's work in Israel. I'm there quite regularly, but I always love hearing about it. And so there's a lot of great material, great testimonies, and to hear about what the Lord is doing. But I'm just going to dig into the Word, if that's okay for now. So Leviticus chapter 23, verse 1. The Lord spoke again to Moses, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, the Lord's appointed times, which you shall proclaim as holy convocations, my appointed times are these." And so the Hebrew word is moed, M-O-E-D, and the Hebrew word moed can mean appointed times. The Bible translators like to give it a little bit more, a little bit more power to it and make it a little bit bigger than it might be. But the Hebrew word moed really just means appointments. And so on Mount Sinai, God gave, through Moses, to the Jewish people, he gave a whole bunch of do's and don'ts. According to Jewish tradition, it was 613 positive and negative commandments. And some of you I know are going to run home and count, but about 613. So along with the positive and negative commandments, God actually gave a calendar to instruct the Israelites on how to live each and every day. Now, he didn't give the whole calendar. Actually, he just gave one festival a week, Shabbat. We learned about that beautifully from Roy and so on if you were at the dinner. And then secondly, there are 7 great festivals of the year. Now, 4 of those festivals are in the spring, unless you're like my wife from Argentina, because this fall is the spring. You got that, right? Even the constellations are in reverse. Okay, so you've got 4 in the fall, 4 in the spring, and 3 in the fall. And so each of these festivals have similar characteristics, and you can learn about those characteristics by understanding the Sabbath. And when you sort of claw back, the reality of the text and say, why did God actually do that? I've been thinking about that for years, and my thought is this. Maybe you've thought about it too, and that is the Lord understood our frame. He made us. He understands the fall better than all of us. And he understands that we get lost on our way in the wilderness of this world. And so he invaded time and space through the holidays demanding that the Jewish people take time away from their normal course of life and focus on him. And each of the festivals actually bring up something unique about God's plan and purposes. So that's what he did. So if you think of each of these festivals, including the weekly Shabbat, Sabbath, if you think of all of them as retreats, I think you'll be on the right track. Now, it's not easy being Jewish. It's not easy being Jewish and believing in Jesus. Not the most popular movement in Brooklyn, where I'm from. We're working on it. But it's even more difficult being a very religious Jewish person working for a secular organization. Do you know how many days off they need? I mean, tabernacles alone, you think it's 7 days. Actually, it's 8 days, and actually it's a 9th day called Simchat Torah. And so you need a lot of days off in order to be a religious Jewish person. So, you have to have give a lot of credit. But people say, why do a lot of religious Jewish people work for other religious Jews? Well, read the chapter. They need the time off. So a lot of the characteristics of the festivals are found in what we learn about the Sabbath. So let me share it with you. For 6 days, work may be done, but on the 7th, there's a Sabbath of complete rest, a holy convocation. So you know the controversy, I guess, between Judaism and Christianity. So Christianity says that Sunday is the Lord's Day, and that's the day of rest. And Jewish people say it's Saturday, after the 6 days of creation. And, people go at loggerheads with each other. If you have a problem with it, just, the Sabbath is the Sabbath, the Lord's Day is the Lord's Day. Okay? Of course, I think every day is the Lord's Day, but it's the resurrection day. So those who say, so I can get on one of my hobby horses just for a moment. So those who say that the real Sabbath is Sunday, the Lord's Day, number one, it's never called the Sabbath. In fact, it's never called anything. It's a great day. I mean, I think it's a great day to worship because we all get the day off on Sunday, usually, most people. But the Sabbath is a day of rest and celebration for the Jewish people. And that's never really changed. There is something which a lot of you are familiar with, and we call it replacement theology, but that's a little bit negative, isn't it? The theological term is supersessionism, which means replacement, basically. But so some people create a whole theological system whereby Sunday now replaces the Saturday. And so, at my age, I used to be like really generous, but at my age, I just don't think it's true. And if you think it's true, actually, I don't care. It's your business. I think whatever day you take and dedicate to God is going to be good, no matter what. But the theological system is a very important thing to take note of. And so when a Jewish person becomes a believer in Jesus, it's not easy to replace Sunday with Saturday, because we're raised that way. So for 6 days, work may be done, but on the 7th day, there's a Shabbat, Sabbath of complete rest. So characteristic number 1 is rest. A holy convocation, characteristic number 2, is gathering together. You shall not do any work. It is a Sabbath to the Lord in all your dwellings. Okay, so we understand that the Sabbath, and I think Roy did a beautiful job at the dinner of explaining this, is that the Sabbath causes Jewish people to look back at creation. And when we look back at creation, we remember that God is our creator. When we remember that God is our creator, then we recalibrate our lives to live under the authority and to do what our Creator wants us to do. Because if we do what He wants us to do, we'll have better lives. And so if you go to a synagogue service, a lot of the worship in the synagogue on Saturday is the liturgy has to do with glorifying the God who is our Creator. And so every one of these festivals sort of look back at something that God did. And the interesting thing is almost all of the festivals, in one way or another, look forward to something God's going to do. So it looks back, and then it looks forward. And so that's very important. Okay, there's the outline. So I want to talk about the roadmap to redemption. You can look at the festivals as celebrations or worship opportunities or retreats or whatever. But in a sense, the Bible also looks at these festivals in a prophetic way. They're what we call types. And a type is a type basically is something in Scripture that points to something future. And it doesn't give you all the information right away, but it gives you some of the information. And so the creation of the world is a historical fact. God created the world in 6 days. But it looks forward, it's a type, it looks forward to a greater day of rest. Now, the interesting thing is, as believers in Yeshua, as believers in Jesus, sometimes we seem to have multiple fulfillments of types. And so Roy made it very clear from Hebrews chapter 4 and so on, that the Sabbath was something that we understand from the past, but in a sense it was fulfilled in the person of Jesus. And then there's a greater fulfillment coming in the future, because I believe we're going to see the Lord face to face. He's going to reign in Jerusalem. He's going to conquer his enemies, and we're going to have peace, and everybody can be under my fig tree if you don't get your own. And so that day is coming. So you look back and you look forward, but you look forward in multiple stages. So you have a interim fulfillment, then you have a greater fulfillment. And theologians, again, have done all sorts of wonderful things and gymnastics figuring out how to do this. So I just say that there's an interim fulfillment that is, ready, it's a good word, organically related to a future fulfillment. That's for you vegetarians. So why does that mean something to me? Well, so I was a really, really nice middle-class Jewish hippie. And I was raised in a secular, modern Orthodox home. Makes no sense, does it? Yeah, you kind of have to be Jewish to get it, you know. So everything I knew about Judaism was Orthodox, and I didn't believe any of it. I was bar mitzvahed at the age of 13, read the Torah. I could speed read Hebrew, almost as fast as Roy, but I could speed read the Hebrew. Did I believe any of it? No, not at all. I didn't. Did I like being Jewish? I never thought about that. See, because in my Jewish bubble in New York City, you were Jewish, and then you could be religious, or you could not be religious. But we never said, well, how Jewish were you? We never thought in those terms. How Jewish was I? I don't know, ask my mother. You know, I mean, I don't know how Jewish I was, but I knew how religious I was, not very. And did I believe in God? You know, the verdict was out for a while. And so then I did a good job of messing up my life, and I eventually went to college and majored in pharmacology, unregistered pharmacology. And I minored in marketing. You'll get it tomorrow. And then, so I kind of made a bit of a mess of my life, and I did last a month in college. But I took music appreciation, and I never slept at night because I was out doing stuff, and I would go listen to Bach about 7:30 in the morning, and I was just out cold, you know, and